All right, welcome to episode 27 of Megawatt Minute. I am Edward, and this is Steven. Say hi.
Hello.
Hello. All right, we've got a lot to talk about this week. I just kept adding to my list. So, we are live on Twitter, YouTube, Rumble. So thanks to everybody we're watching. And be sure to hit like, subscribe, and share this with your friends. So last week we had John from Pleb Miners on. I thought that was pretty interesting show.
Yeah, it's fun.
Conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and his sharing in his network. We actually first time we had over 100 views on one episode. So
I saw that. Very cool.
Yeah, we're slowly, slow growth, but the growth is good, and hopefully we'll keep on this trajectory. So, thank you very much to Dirty Coin and Alana for sponsoring Megawatt Minute. So be sure to check out. She's got a Geyser Fund where they're raising money for the documentary, and I think she was in Prague. I think I saw some posts from Prague from her, and I know Muzz. Do you know Muzz from Lightning Ventures?
I don't.
No? Okay. He was there. Trying to think who else I know that went to Prague, but seemed like a fun time. I imagine it's a little bit of a different vibe than Miami or Nashville. And,
I heard Prague's really cool though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like maybe a little less of the controversy than the Bitcoin conference.
Yeah.
That's good. So we'll go through our stats real quick, and we're going to try Lincoin. John turned us on to the Lincoin lens, so we're going to switch between this and the hash rate index. But I've got it pulled up here, so I can turn them on and off if we need to, because I'm still getting used to how to read it. But it's a fairly standard chart. But we've got the hash price here, so slowly on a downward trajectory. So
what are we at right now? Oh, okay.
63.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we've got the let's see here, difficulty keeps going up. So I imagine that will react at some point. So it's kind of you got the leading indicators and your lagging indicators. So
yeah, none of them are good.
No. Yeah, we want that to go down. Yes, for sure. And then we've got Bitcoin price. We don't want that to go down, but it is.
I know. I looked at it before the show, and it's like I didn't realize that it got below 25 today. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I don't know. The average block time is up to we're a little above 10, so that'll have to adjust a little bit. And so I don't know if that's related at all to maybe the Bitcoin price going down and the hash rate going up or not. And then we've got our price of miners. So I was just looking around and reading stuff, and I think somebody from Luxor actually mentioned that still trying to find a bottom is what they said. So they're they are both, we've got the 25 to 38 joules per terahash is slowly trending downward, but then the 25 joules per terahash is quickly trending downward, which is interesting. But I was pricing some of the Bitmain's price for their current, what was it? Was it XP? I think is like $4,500 for 104. That's just market price. That's what they have it listed at. So I didn't get any bids or anything like that yet.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's so the reason, or one of our first stories though, is in regards to shared and Soluna. So it's funny because these guys kind of, and so I talked to them a while ago, finally moved in here, and they deploy 25 megawatts, and so they're up to 41 megawatts. But we've talked in the past, kind of who is deploying, right? We talked about Spark going into Texas and stuff like that, but these little 25 megawatt deals, they add up, and they're adding up the real hash rate. We keep seeing it increase, and so I was thinking about what, not putting a lot of effort into tracking this, right? But what you could sell in terms of just headlines from people who are publicly announcing that they're hash rate online. And if we can integrate that into the show, or kind of highlight some of these deals and kind of solve the mystery of who's actually deploying in the midst of this $25,000 Bitcoin. So
yeah, I've been seeing Solana. They've been doing a good job online of creating press for themselves. I've been seeing a lot of them lately. So yeah, no, good for them.
They're public though, so I mean, if you're public, you want to be talking about. I think they probably got wrapped into a special purpose vehicle of some sort, but I was looking there. I mean, they're so you're the guy with the stocks, right? So what? All right, I'm back.
I got you now.
All right. So I was asking what with your holdings, what is the current trend, since you keep a closer eye on it than me, to the public stocks in general?
Everything's been going down lately. I mean, at when was it? Was it at the end of May? I was basically like, there's gonna be a run up. I don't. Why did I say that? Maybe because I forgot why I'd said that, but I thought there was going to be a run up in June little bit, and then I was going to sell, and that ended up not being the case. So, yeah, I mean, just about all the public mining stocks are
it's
down.
The SEC news.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It was the SEC news. So, yeah, really everything's been down, including my mining portfolio. So I've been a little disappointed in that.
I'm back.
What's up, dude?
I just switched over to my hotspot. I'm not messing with my ISP right now.
Nice. Well, I've been holding it down live for us, just staring into the camera.
But you got to talk about something. So my thought was like how the fact that the Soluna's stock is worth like 20 cents or something pretty tiny compared to like the riots and those guys. So, all right. So then next story, the System CoinDesk. Yeah, make sure you can see it. Good deal.
Yeah,
All
let me say one thing, and not necessarily about Soluna, but I know Compass, that Luxor has, oh gosh, what's his name? I think is it Jared or Gerard?
Oh yeah.
And Luxor and Compass has somebody, and they do a really good job of analyzing the mining stocks, the mining companies. The Miner Mag has some really good details around that. I mean, I would be looking at several several metrics before I start investing in some of the public miners, because I still think it's going to be somewhat of a bloodbath after the halvening. Like I don't see, unless you have a lot of capital, obviously the marathons and the riots, and I read something about TeraWulf today. I mean, they're mining Bitcoin at an unbelievable discounted rate off of their nuclear facility. So, I mean, you better have some really, really cheap power and a lot of capital, and you better run some really efficient mining operations, I think, to survive. So I would be super careful of who I invest in. Hashtag not financial advice, but I think over time you're going to see Riot and Marathon go up. I mean, that's not like super sound financial advice, but I mean, those are the big boys, and they're going to have money. They're going to survive the having.
You think Riot and Compass? You said
no, Riot and Marathon. If I said Compass,
Marathon. Sorry, no, I misheard you. Yeah. All right. Well, let's next week. Let's we haven't gone through kind of reviewed the current status.
Let's do that. We'll review some of the public miners and some of those metrics.
All right, I'll get that together for us. Cool. So yeah, this was interesting. This actually just showed up yesterday. So and it relates to our. I'll do the second part first. So Coinbase posted this a couple weeks back, but they talking about how the amount of the lack of Bitcoin on the exchanges, and obviously I think with the SEC, it's pretty obvious people are getting their stuff off the exchange, which is a good thing. But then I thought it was interesting that then just a couple weeks later, the Bitcoin miners transferring Bitcoin to the exchange. To the presumption is they're liquidating.
Yep.
I don't know why else you would, but so if you read the article, it actually says that this is supposedly a bullish sentiment. This is it seems like it's like trying to find silver lining, right? This is a bullish sentiment because they think the price is going to go up. Price of Bitcoin is going to go up, so they're getting it on the exchange, so they're ready to liquidate when the price goes up. So it seems seems like an overly optimistic reading of events, but yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, we're at 24.9 right now. So
I'm guessing they're just covering costs. I mean, that's the simplest explanation, obviously. Yeah. So, but if they invest money in, as far as who invests money in predictions and reading charts and TA and stuff like that. I mean, if you're a miner, you're going to have Pierre Rochard or whoever, right, sitting there doing analysis for you to figure out, what the move is, and potentially they might be ahead of the curve here. So we shall see.
Could be. I hope they are.
I'm gonna go with they're just liquidating to cover costs, though.
Yeah, that's my guess too. But I continue to be wrong.
All right, so that's the miner news, and we've got so this was after we talked all about the bill that died in committee. there's some other legislation related to miners in Texas or electricity in Texas, I guess. In general, I mean, I think if you're in Texas and you're one of the big miners down, and either one, a disconnect. This was highlighted for me last week talking to John between kind of what the plebs want and what the plebs vision and goals are versus kind of what the big guys have in mind or what they are looking for. Mm-hmm. But I also think that if I'm a big miner, if the legislators are passing things and are making moves, I want to try to, if there's any good coming out of it, even if it might not be exactly what I want, I'm going to try to cheer them on, clap when, so that I can keep them happy, right? So that they don't come after me, right? So whether this really truly is good for the industry or Texas down there, I don't. It's the big guys seem to like it, so for whatever reason they seem to be excited, happy at least.
Yeah, I mean, that conversation with John was interesting last week. I mean, there's definitely two schools of thought, I guess, when you've got kind of the Johns of the world, and then I don't know. I sit in between. I mean, I definitely see kind of that underground mindset of John, but I mean, there's a lot of positives of a big industry like mining. Sure. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think this is it is going to be good for everybody.
I think it comes, for me, when we were on like one of the last stories, right, we were talking about, the cost of capital, right, and realizing that our views on Bitcoin and kind of why we like Bitcoin as sound money, is it butting heads with this idea of like taking on huge amounts of debt to fund your miners, which is what almost all these guys are doing, right? And then, is that?
No, not. I mean, I don't think so, because in the world of Bitcoin, if there's too much debt, like nobody, I mean, you saw it. I mean, nobody's bailing you out. Like, I mean, you're going bankrupt, you're going out of business. It's a little bit different than the fiat system, where if a big company gets out over their skis, like generally the federal government is going to come in and bail them out, depending on who they are in the industry. But I mean, I didn't see any safety nets for. So I think the system, even though, they were taking out debt, there was too much debt in the system, I think overall the system worked. I mean, it cleansed itself of all these, of I don't want to say bad actors, because I think they had good intentions, but they just made some mistakes.
Yeah. I mean, that's better than too big bail and bailouts like that.
Yeah. I mean, I hate to see them go out of business. I mean, it sucks, but it just, that, I mean, that is, the essence of business or capitalism or whatever,
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, this was basically that the 1929, that they have to work more closely with ERCOT, which is not too big of a deal to them.
Yeah.
So as long as ERCOT doesn't get too crazy, it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal, and it only affects the large miners. So it's not like they're asking the plebs to register or anything like that. So it's just part of the game you play at that size. So I thought 9.5 million in 1 month. Riot earned last year. That's just crazy that they're, curtailing or I assume they're curtailing to get that money. So it's interesting just how all those dynamics work out.
Yeah.
And having to make those decisions on the fly. So let's see here. Then moving on to other mining, not let's say more energy and mining working together. But so I was on a SasMiner Twitter Spaces, and somebody mentioned Synoda, and so I was looking into Synoda and what all they're building because it sounded very interesting. And then I came across this. So Marty Bent had actually had them on, and so there's a much longer podcast here. We'll link to this in the show notes. But there's a much longer podcast from Marty Bent that actually where they're talking to the founders and talking about what Synoda does. But basically, it's the Lightning rails tying the energy companies to Bitcoin miners, and kind of like doing real-time payments against your energy utilization. And I watched some of it, and basically they're putting a Lightning node, so for whatever the energy company or PG&E or whoever it is, like they're putting a Lightning node in their infrastructure, whether it's cloud or physical. I seem to be, you could do either way. I'm guessing more cloud than anything, but basically putting a Lightning node there, and they're using it to receive Bitcoin when certain, so if you mine and you use a megawatt that day and you owe them whatever amount, it's basically transmitting that amount to the energy company at the end of the day, and they're getting to settle up, and they can convert it right away to US dollars. So it's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, no, I met their COO of Synoda a couple months ago, actually, and I was super interested. I think there are some interesting angles around software in the mining space, for sure. I think this is one of them. Obviously, fleet management, energy management, which this isn't necessarily energy management, but I really like this. I think that you're probably going to see energy companies, not all of them, but I think you're going to see energy companies like the idea of getting paid in Bitcoin daily. I mean, obviously this is on the Lightning rails, so you can get, they can transact in USD or BTC. Most of them are going to take USD, but I think this is super interesting. I mean, mining is just one sector that they're going after with their solution. But I mean, I watched the one of the founders, his pitch at the Michael Saylor conference.
Yeah.
And, he was talking about, your bill in May, your energy bill that you pay in May was for energy consumption in March. And 10 to 20% of that bill isn't even energy consumption. It's just the cost of basically the value chain or the daisy chain of certain intermediaries that, need to get paid, basically. Mm-hmm. So I think it's probably a big problem to solve. And it'll be interesting, but I definitely, I'm super interested in watching Synoda over the next few years and what they're able to do in the mining space. I think it's super interesting.
Yeah. They talked about orange pilling the electric companies, of how you could keep some of it in Bitcoin if you wanted, and then it really is though kind of a purpose built for what Lightning's meant to do, in terms of like trusted vendors or trusted parties. Like if you're opening up a channel between it's better between you and your vendor rather than you and some rando node across the world that you don't necessarily know who they are. So, it's very cool. Let's see what else here. All right, so we're gonna move on to global news. So this was from the dam that blew up probably about a week ago or less than a week ago, and it's already off the news cycle already. It was like one day everybody was talking about this dam that got blown up, and now it's already been forgotten basically by the headlines. Well, especially since we had a lot of other exciting news since then. But So there's the whole question back and forth between those who are like, yeah, Russia did it because Russia gets blamed for everything, and then those who are like, why would Russia do this? Right? It seems like the risk is higher for them, the damage is higher for them if they and the people that support Russia over in that region with the dam blowing up, right? You always obviously have water rushing and risk of more water rushing and flooding and all that kind of stuff. But what part of the interest. The reason I picked this article was just because, or this piece of news, is just because that it related to the nuclear facility that's over there, which has been highly contentious in terms of like who controlled it for a while, and was the IAEA, but were the global regulators going to step in and try to interfere in the war and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so I enjoy. I enjoy
drama.
the drama.
You enjoy the nuclear drama.
I enjoy the conspiracy theories of like.
You do for sure, for sure. I do too.
Yeah,
I do too. But there's if Russia did it, Russia's been doing a lot. They've been doing a lot to themselves.
Yeah.
They planned the explosion over their the presidential whatever it is. They blew up Nord Stream. They did this.
Yeah,
they've been doing a lot, to themselves. A lot of false flags,
and so it probably would have gone differently if that facility, if the nuclear facility, which I can barely pronounce, Zaporizhia had been out of commission from this, right? Like that would have probably made it worse in terms of global pushback on the whole thing, because you've got a bunch of Ukrainians now but more and more Russians who are now out of power. And then, but again, why would Russia do something that would potentially damage a nuclear facility that they're trying to take over in an area they're trying to control? It just makes no sense. So,
yeah.
So let's see here, and then so the other macro thing. This is from Juan Galtz. He's on Twitter. I follow him on Twitter. But he did a podcast with a trader in the commodity space, and they were talking about kind of, it was just a contrarian perspective, and the general it is interesting because I think nobody's talked about gas prices recently. Are you seeing anything from it? It seem fairly stable. They haven't gone. They're not great, but they haven't done anything crazy in my area, at least.
Even mine either.
Yeah. So it's funny. It's like same with the dam blowing up and stuff. Just the news going right. Like how do we pick and choose? And it's a constant cycle of fear and. The end of the day, but the idea that gas would go down, I even mentioned, I think it was on this podcast where they were talking about, remember when the strategic reserves, when Biden dug into the strategic reserves and used some of that, and because I think we talked about it even, right, in terms of like we were a net producer of oil or of energy, I should say. And then for, when that stopped at the turn of the administration, and then all of a sudden now we're using up our strategic reserves. I think he was the one, Gabriel T was the one that mentioned that like that oil or those reserves actually have an expiration date. And so to some degree, if that's, I assume it's true, he's in the space, I'm not, but so we had to use some of that for that reason. I thought that was an interesting thing that nobody had really pointed out. I had not heard it talked about anywhere. So,
well, I just looked up Henry Hub natural gas price, spot price. So, and so the June data hasn't came out yet. So it's just May. So they measure the natural gas spot price. Dollars per million BTU. All right. Yep. So in May of this year, it was $2.15. Do you know what it was May of last year?
I'll say $3.50.
$8.14.
Wow. Jeez.
So if you look at last year's natural gas spot price, now this is Henry Hub, but Henry Hub is, I mean, Henry Hub is pretty major.
Yeah.
So it's out of South Louisiana, around Lafayette, maybe. I'm not sure. I can't fully remember. But January, this is last year, started out in the 4s, got to the 6s in April, hit 8, 7, 7, 8, 7, and then started coming down late last year in October in the 5s. 3 in January, and then we've seen a slow decrease. But it makes sense just based on a lot of the sites and rate schedules that I've seen all over the country, really. You know, because those natural gas prices have a lot to, you know, there's generally a mix of natural gas on when it gets on grid with and you know, most of the race schedules I've seen have been coming down this year, and they plan on going down even further into next year. So it'll be interesting to see if natural gas still continues to on this trend. But yeah, that just goes to show like how crazy it was last year. I mean, no wonder like people were shutting down machines and everything else.
Well, that's where the I mean, yeah, I guess if you can sell it, if you can capitalize on that, then you know, sell the gas instead of mine on it, then yeah, I mean, that would make sense.
Well, that's, I mean, you know, when gas is high like that, I mean, the incentive, especially in Louisiana, you know, because gas isn't flared here. Like gas is, but it, you know, people drill for gas to go in the pipeline and to sell it. So, you know, there's not a lot of incentive for them to mine Bitcoin if they're getting, you know, their $8+ you know, per million BTU. But when it's at 2 or, you know, 3 or 2, there's some incentive there for sure.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think Crusoe. I was listening to Crusoe, and they were talking. He threw out a number. I can't remember what the number was, but you know, obviously he knows this like the back of his hand. Like, so he was throwing out numbers of like what the price is that they can, where their break even is, or what's a good number for them to get.
Yeah.
And this was for me back. I remember back into last year dealing with like the Oklahoma sites, and they were talking about you know, we talked about it on the podcast of like the prices of the price of electricity in Oklahoma was doing crazy things, or you know, was about to if this trend continued. And I mean, it was creeping up, and it was going to get worse. But then obviously, that's toned down drastically. It sounds like, and so that would explain why none of that really, you know, the sky is falling. You know, the sky never really fell because it seems like it's calmed itself down. But, and I don't know what the global factors are there in terms of like what, you know, I'm trying to think of what with the war and stuff, you know, like Nord Stream, like all that kind of stuff. Like what would have changed in terms of getting, yeah, I wonder if it's almost their response or kind of like a pushback or like a middle finger to BRICS of being like, or OPEC of saying like, you know, we're gonna, you know, we don't necessarily need you guys in terms of like we can still keep our prices stable, and you know, whatever decisions you make, you know, you're not gonna they can't show weakness, right? They have to show strength, otherwise they're just gonna be OPEC's bitch, and so they've got to be able to stabilize it somehow, and it seems like they figured it out. Or I wonder if they I remember I think somebody Blinken or somebody went over to I think Saudi Arabia. I can't remember who it was, and you know, there was rumor of like they were going over there with hat in hand, like begging for mercy. So maybe OPEC decided to show them mercy. So I haven't looked at OPEC outputs recently.
I haven't either.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's next week let's talk about public miners again. Check in and see how those things are doing, and do some comparisons.
Hopefully, hopefully my portfolio's up. You know.
Yeah. Yes. Hopefully, you can report good news.
Now, well, year over year, it's. I mean, I'm up 50%. I think I would have to check, but I mean, I can't complain too much because it's up drastically from the end of last year. So I'm not going to complain too much. It's been down a little over the last I call it a few weeks, but
Great.
so I'm looking forward to it.
All right, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you to Dirty Coin. Go check them out, dirtycointhemovie.com. And where can people find you?
LinkedIn, Stephen Dollar.
All right. And under Marketplace, and MWARKD. So have a good day, everybody. Talk to you next week.